What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day of Philly sports history for December 10th, 2022. Big, huge show today. Lots going on, so let's jump right into it. What the hell is going on with the Sixers? They were up 16 points, I think, with like 2 minutes left. Should have just been running out the clock. Is that the coach? Is that the players? A combination? I don't know. But that was what, back in seventh grade basketball, you work on breaking the press. They could not break the press to save their lives. They let the Lakers right back into that game. Luckily, they woke up in overtime and kind of pulled away, but there's no way that game should have went into overtime. Is that the coach? Let me know, because I think at this point, this team just needs a fresh set of eyes. Get Doc out of there. Let it be Cassell. And I keep going back to this, but it worked for the Phillies. I'm not saying it's going to work for the Sixers, but there's too much talent on that team to play like that. The Lakers are not a good team. Yeah, AD's good, and he kind of caught fire there in the second half. LeBron James is washed up. I mean, Westbrook cannot. I mean, he's terrible too. Like, they're not a good team. There's no way the Lakers should have been back in that game. That's on the coach. More on that to come. Flyers lost a tough one in Vegas, 2-1. These are the kind of games, this is what we want to see from this team. They played well. Carter Hart played amazing against a good team. They just couldn't get it done. Vegas is probably one of the best teams in the NHL. Carter Hart played well. They got the loss. Counts in the standings. That's what I mean. To me, that's the appropriate way to tank. And we're going to keep an eye on that, but I was glad to see that. Big game today in the Big Five. Temple versus Penn down at the Plestra. Temple wins. They are the outright Big Five champion. They've already clinched a share of it, but to me, selfishly, and for people outside of Philly, Big Five is the city championship. So the five city teams, minus Drexel, even though Villanova technically isn't in the city, play for the championship. But Temple also beat Drexel, so to me, those are the fun years where they beat every team in the city. So let's go Owls. That game, I believe, is like 1 o'clock this afternoon. Quick update for, if you were listening to Back to the Future, we did the episode on Von Hayes, and I kept mentioning my buddy's bar, Billy Murphy's Irish Saloonery, and the Von Hayes sandwich. Apparently, the Von Hayes sandwich is not on the menu anymore. So Von Hayes, once again, continues to disappoint us. But go ahead and check out Murph's anyway. It's a good place, good food, good time. All right, so big day today. So on this date, back in 1989, it was Bounty Bowl 2. A couple weeks ago, we had talked about Bounty Bowl 1, the Thanksgiving game between the Eagles and the Cowboys. Well, 17 days later, they played at the Vet this time. Excuse me. With the Eagles coming away with a 20-10 win. Now, this was an interesting game to say the least, because CBS was pumping it up as Bounty Bowl 2, complete with like wanted posters with bounty amounts and everything. You would never, ever see that today for a variety of reasons. The NFL itself would not let that happen. But they were trying to get the ratings. The Cowboys were terrible. The Eagles were in the process of making a run toward the playoffs. So CBS was doing whatever it could. They had Terry Bradshaw and Vern Lundquist were the announcers. I think they were like the B team. You had Pat Summerall and John Madden were the A team. But I always liked Vern Lundquist and Terry Bradshaw when they did the announcements. But, of course, it snowed that week in Philly. So the city at the time owned and managed Veterans Stadium. And they just decided not to shovel. So you know what happens to snow when it falls. It melts. It gets cold. It freezes again. Thaw, rinse, repeat. Well, of course, there's snow in the stadium. There's ice pellets. And say what you want. Like, yeah, I stick up for Philly fans all the time. However, they're going to throw snowballs, especially against the Cowboys, especially if the NFL is bumping or promoting this game as Bounty Bowl 2. Like, it wasn't a very smart thing on the city's part to kind of do that, but whatever. It snowed. It doesn't take rocket scientists to figure out what's going to happen. That's all we hear about. We threw snowballs at Santa, so yeah. So they were throwing snow and ice, beer, whatever they could get their hands on. So, and here's what was funny about that: nobody was safe. I mean, they were hitting referees, they were hitting Cowboys players, Jimmy Johnson's. They were throwing them up at the announce tip box, and Vern Lundquist famously made the announcement that he had recent dental surgery, and he was like, basically he hated coming to Philly. He was like, that was more pleasant than broadcasting a game from Philly, but whatever. Jerome Brown, even as he was like telling people not to throw stuff, I mean, the fans threw stuff at Jerome Brown. Like, it was just, again, people are going to do dumb things when there's snow, alcohol, Cowboys, whatever involved. And I mean, I can't even say that I blame them. I mean, they're pumping it up like Bounty Bowl. And like they totally got caught up into it, but whatever. There's also the story that Ed Rendell, the former governor of Pennsylvania, mayor, I think he was the attorney general at the time, was involved with throwing snowballs. He bet somebody $20 that they couldn't get on the field, and he did. So these are the things that you had going on in the stadium that day. Obviously, the Eagles won. They scored on one of the touchdowns was on a fake punt to or a fake field goal to Chris Carter. Just an overall, they just dominated. I mean, they dominated the Cowboys at that time. The Cowboys went 1-15 that year anyway. But due to all the snowballs and things like that happening at the game, there was no beer sales at the Cardinals game, the last home game, or the Rams wildcard game. I don't know if I can imagine going to an Eagles game and not being able to grab a beer, but I don't know. Some other great things out of this game. Buddy Ryan, in true Buddy Ryan fashion, when he was asked about it, he was like, well, when there's snow, you're going to have snowballs. And I knowing him, he secretly loved it. The fact that Jimmy Johnson was getting hit with snowballs, and I'm sure he didn't like his own players getting hit, but yeah, I mean, and like I said, I mean, it was a dumb move on the city's part. I don't think there's probably ever going to be a time. Well, now the Eagles run the stadium, but it's just not a smart decision on the city of Philadelphia. But as somebody who lived there for almost 20 years, I'm not shocked either. Norman Brayman, obviously the Eagles owner, was pissed. He was sitting in the box at the owner's box with brand new, only like a month on the job, NFL commissioner Paul Tagliabue. So he was just embarrassed. He flipped out, and fuck him anyway. He was a douchebag. But the other thing that was big about this game and kind of changed the whole course of this Eagles team was the day before the Eagles quarterback coach Doug Scoville died. And he was basically the guy that created Randall Cunningham. Obviously did not get to finish the job. And you see sort of what happened with Randall now. Like, this is kind of like the turning point in his career. He was more than just a coach. He was more of a father figure to Randall. I guess his parents both had died, and he looked up to him. And they wore the black, it looks like they just put black electrical tape on their wings for Doug Scoville, which is pretty cool if you look at it, what they did. But it really did change the course of this team a lot because, like I said, it was incomplete. Randall, the next year, was just kind of going out there doing his thing. That's the ultimate weapon year. But then once he had some different people trying to coach him up, it didn't really go well with Kotite and everything like that. And it took until he finally got back to Minnesota a couple years removed from the situation that he was able to go. But that's going to be a future episode because I feel like that really changed the course of the Eagles teams back then. But big day in Philly sports today. Go have yourselves a Saturday. Go Owls. On this day in Philly sports history in 1989, it was Bounty Bowl 2. Eagles beat the Cowboys 20-10. Like I said, enjoy your day. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.